What's your 100-day challenge?
I'm doing 100 days of removing all distractions. So I'm strategizing right now on what exactly that's going to look like, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. So the initial idea is to remove the unnatural distractions in food. So of course, no sugar, no gluten. I would still do meats. I'm debating on dairy because dairy really isn't very good for you. So that, and then all other substances, marijuana, alcohol, anything like that, and also caffeine as well. Which that one is going to be that's the thing that scares me the most out of all this is the caffeine. As I've done 14-day challenges like this, and caffeine was the hardest part of it. And then and then also no masturbation as well. So the purpose of this,
No ejaculation
no
or no
masturbation.
masturbation?
Now I was thinking no sex, but part of
You
this,
already did that one.
yeah, no, I did the no orgasms at all, and part of this is really it's for me to like be the best version of myself, and that includes dating. I really feel like I'm ready to find someone to I'm ready to stop dating and find someone to be with. So I don't want to take that out of the equation, but masturbation is a distraction. That's something you do when you're trying to avoid feeling a certain way or satisfy an urge in a very simple way. Using cheat codes for happiness, essentially. And that's what sugar does, and that's what food does, and it's a little cheat code for feeling good and feeling occupied. It's not even necessarily good. And so the whole thing is like when you indulge in that behavior of eating whatever you want and smoking and drinking and stuff like that, there's a certain freedom to it. Like when you're a kid, you're like, oh man, if I could eat candy all the time, I'd be eating candy every day. And there's a certain freedom and that feels great. But for every freedom, there's a restriction. And so if you want the freedom to eat candy and drink alcohol and smoke weed and indulge in all of that stuff, the restriction is on your health. Like, you're not as cardiovascularly fit. You're not as lean. Now you have a restriction of you could look and feel this way, but instead you're choosing freedom in the indulgence. Therefore, the restriction comes in the health. Well, I already know what that's like. I'm at a point in my life where I've gotten stable. But I've kind of plateaued, and I wanted to live my life on my own terms, make my own schedule, do what I want. No one tells me what to do, none of it. And I've reached that, and I'm kind of bored of it. And I feel like I'm getting better like 10% every year, which that's not breakthrough. That's not transformation. I feel like I'm ready for that next level of my life, to start leading a lot of people, to grow my coaching practice and my YouTube channel, my following and stuff. And so I wondered to myself, like, okay, if everything has a freedom and restriction, what if I restricted all of that other stuff and all of these distractions? And I wouldn't only stop myself from indulging in these type of things, but also tighten up my behaviors, my TV behaviors. I'm also thinking about doing like no TV, no YouTube, unless it is research or TV that is social. For instance, me and mom have a show we like to watch together, watching a Cubs game together, going to a movie. That stuff I can do as well. So I'm thinking about putting that in the parameters on top of it. And I just wondered to myself, like, if I wasn't able to scroll through bullshit YouTube videos and, all the shit I like there, my, MMA stuff, my sports stuff, and then all my nerdy, NLP and self-development stuff. And all the TV shows, I like watching South Park and all that. But if I were to take all that away and restrict those things that I go to, what what is the freedom on the other side? Like, what would happen if I restricted all of those things? Like, what's behind that door?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, but to your point, for every time you do one thing, that you say yes to, you're saying no to another thing. So I guess in that spirit, I would play devil's advocate on a couple of things. Number one, using the word distraction for something, in my mind, invites other people who are watching what you're doing to pathologize it or demonize it.
How so?
There's giving up alcohol. I mean, you and I both know there are very few things in life that are entirely good or entirely bad. A bullet through your brain, there's no upside, right? None. There is upside to moderate drinking, given, it's a person who doesn't have an addiction to it, or whether that be chemical or social or emotional, but whatever. Someone who's in control of being able to drink how much and when, there's an upside. There's an upside to eating pizza every once in a while. There's an upside to chilling out and watching YouTube. So to label those things distractions, I think you're going to have to be. Maybe you want to edit this out. I think most people are dumb. You're going to have to be careful to make sure that you don't just let dumb people then make Spency says it's a black and white issue, that you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. Right. And now you're making allowing for a legalistic interpretation of it, as opposed to what I think you're really trying to say is there's an upside and there's a downside to everything. And I've experienced the upside of what all these things have brought to my life, and I've enjoyed that. I like that. I'm not going to do this forever. However, there's a journey I want to undertake, because I think there's doors that I haven't opened by not indulging in those things for a period of time. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are what they are. Right. And I've had the experiences that I've had with those things. And in the same way that, if you went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, you're not saying that where you live is a bad place and I need to purge myself of Chicago. No, it's just that I'm going to a place to begin to reframe and rethink some things, so that when I go back to having alcohol, when I go back to having orgasms, watching TV, I have a renewed perspective on it, or a renewed appreciation for it, and I've learned something about myself that I didn't know was there before. Because you see this in fitness all the time. You see this in diet all the time. This is good for you. Lifting something that way is bad for you.
Right.
No. What's the context? There's very few things are demons, monsters, as you like to say, in and of themselves. So that would be the one thing where I would say I would prefer you have a little bit more, that your language would be clearer around it, and words that are less easily interpreted as black and white, good and do it or don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And let me close out of this here. And the whole purpose of this is to have that conversation. And I'll be vlogging the whole thing for the 100 days, talking about the journey of it, the perspectives of it. I think that there's a lot of perspective behind those doors of restriction that I can empathize with. I can see it, but I haven't embodied it. And there's a difference between the two. I could see what it's like to be a professional athlete, but like really going through it, a whole different game. And that's the conversation that I want to have. And I think you're right that when actually explaining it to people, that I should be clear in the way that I do that, to show them that we're in a world of duality, and you've got to, when you choose one thing, you give up another thing. When you choose one thing, you learn something else, but you avoid learning another thing. And so that's really what I'm trying to do. And ultimately, when I do challenges like this, as I do 14-day challenges in my Precise Living Masterclass, and I, do my own 14-day challenges periodically throughout the year, it's really to build a new relationship with whatever that habit is. So you can really see the relationship that you have with something when you take it away and you experience its loss. Then you really find out what it means to you. My Beats X broke, my headset, and I always was like, oh wow, it's really nice to have them. But now that they're gone, how many times have I been walking with my phone and I go past, a doorknob or something,
right,
and then my headset rips out, and I was like, oh gosh, I miss it. And it's only because of that pain of having my headphones ripped out of my ears do I appreciate them so much more. And that when they come back, I'll have a newfound respect for them to where I will take care of them better because they broke, because they got wet. And it gives you new perspective. So ultimately, you're absolutely right. I don't want to not have pizza ever again, not have a drink ever again, or smoke a bowl ever again. What I do want is to really see who I am without those things. Yeah. And then once that gives me a perspective of who I am, what I want, what I'm doing, and then what those things are from a third-party point of view. It's no longer a first-person point of view. And at that point, I can make a conscious, mindful decision of, I'd like to live clean like this, so to speak, and choose to have alcohol on the weekends, choose to smoke once a month, choose to have, choose to go off my diet only when I'm with friends, whatever it may be. But making those decisions right now as to what relationship I want with them, it's very kind of gray area. So I feel like something like this is really going to help define my boundaries around the things that typically like grip people. I mean, I'm eliminating all of the things that, all of the simple things that grip people. And I'm really fascinated in it. And I feel like, growth comes...
Well, all of the obvious things that grip people. Because, right. I think both it isn't as bad, and we need to leave room for the very good likelihood that it might be as bad in a different way to be addicted to Bejeweled or Words with Friends. I mean, you want to talk about the chemical response of the dopamine and that kind of thing. Well, it's not that different than a lot of other things people are doing. So that would be another thing that I think you'd want to, again, try to make very clear that these are the things I'm finding myself relying on or not knowing why I do as often as I do. But what are the things that you are doing to your audience that you can think through and think beyond the classics, the drugs, alcohol, sex, food. There are other things. I mean, how many people can't go to sleep without having the TV on? How many people, can't get through the day without looking at Instagram 50 times? Like, there are lots of things that don't serve us. Again, I just think I have a sensitivity to, like, there are classic things that it's easy for people to get behind. Oh, that's bad. Right. But there are other sneakier things that in the, however long we've been here, the universe has been here for 13.8 billion years, and only in a sliver of a sliver of a sliver of a sliver has anyone or anything in the universe had the ability to always be looking at whatever they want. Right. So what about those things? Alcohol's been around forever, but staring at a smartphone hasn't. So just, again, trying to make it very clear for people, like, it's not these things. I'm not doing an exploration of things. I'm doing an exploration of a principle. Right. The principle happens to be being applied to these things. Right.
And I'm interested to see where my energy sprays. because when I'm trying to get something done and I'm getting frustrated or bored or whatever, that's when I go to these little pleasure bombs. That's when I go to the food, and that's when I go to the weed or the booze or the, surface level conversations with girls. And when I plug all of those energy leaks up, I'm fascinated to see where it goes. Like, will I pick up Bejeweled? And
Right.
and in anticipation of that, maybe I should say, also, no like dating apps like Tinder, what I mean, surface level conversation applications. There's more than just that, but those type of interactions. So it's not even the app. It's like, don't have those surface level conversations, and no games. Like I can't start playing video games. Maybe I could take up playing guitar. That's different. So, but that's why I wanted to have this conversation to help kind of look I'm trying to clean house. And so I'm trying to like look in the corners and see what I should include, what I shouldn't include. Because I'm fascinated where my energy is going to leak. The intention is that the energy isn't spraying out of these kind of like these, holes of frustration, but they plug up and then the energy, it flows directly towards whatever my intention is. And that's what I'm hoping to get out of this is to develop my attention muscle. And and I feel like we don't have a back problem in our culture. We have a sitting problem. We sit too much. We don't have an ADD problem. We have an attention, like a culture where attention is being pulled 10,000 times a day.
Well, and where attention is being idolized. I mean, again, the older I get, the more I try and look through all of what I want to accomplish, or I check my own definitions for things against something that Dr. Andreo Spina, the functional range conditioning guy, that he always says, which is there's 3 questions to filter. He's talking about movement, but really everything in life through. What were you designed to do or evolved to do, respecting both schools of thought? What were you designed to do? What were you evolved to do? Number 1. What are you doing? Number 2. And then number 3, how are you compensating for not doing what you were designed / evolved to do? Because we're not running around gathering berries, hunting animals, in big social groups all the time, never alone. So for me, I guess I would say, like, take the exploration even deeper and start questioning things like, and you're already very good at this with language, but I'm going to talk about language for a second. Why? Okay, so I got these things that I consider energy leaks, and I want to get them out of my life. Why do I consider that a leak? Or, if I don't go on the dating app, but I do pick up the guitar, like, it sounds as though already in your mind you're beginning to construct, like, the dating app isn't something I need, but I've already categorized as playing the guitar as something productive. Why? What if sitting in silence is productive? This as a former bodybuilder. You said you wanted to exercise your attention muscles. If you want to gain weight, how many hours in a week do you actually train? 5?
Yeah.
How many hours are in a week? If you train more hours than that, if somebody came to you and said, I want to build a lot of muscle, and you said, here's a program, it should take you about 5 hours a week, and they go, what? 5 times or 7 times 24? There's so many more hours in the week that I could be working on this than just 5. And in their mind, they go, more is better. Hard work pays off. Early bird gets the worm. All these like American capitalistic platitudes go through their head, and they think, fuck it, I'm going to work out 10 hours a week. You are smart enough to go, no. That's not how it works. To make a muscle stronger, you stress it for a very short period of time relative to the amount of time that you let it recover. So for me, when I'm hearing you say, I want to be able to focus my energy, I think I would back up and ask yourself the question, like, what from an evolutionary perspective, biological perspective, social perspective, should I even expect to be able to see as reasonable for an amount of time that I can actually focus on a thing.
Right.
I mean, we have these ideas that a work week is 40 hours a week. Well, research shows that after 25 hours, productivity dips. So I guess I would even as in this process question why you're making some of the assumptions about the things you already are. Why are you considering that a leak? Why is playing the guitar better than being on an app? Why do I want to be able to flex more focused muscle? Is that what's best for me?
Right.
I would dig into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've got some strategies on, or so the challenge is to abstain from these things, right?
Right.
And what I'm going to do with all this newfound time is the real project
Right.
of how do I manage myself. The older version of me would have said, now that I can do this, I can sit at my computer, flip that crazy switch I got, and just
Right.
zone in, zone in, zone in, zone in, as I did last year when I could barely move my shoulder because I was sitting for 19 hours a day, having people bring me things because I never got up. The reason that I didn't take away sex is because I want to live a balanced life. This is about an extreme of balance. So that's the extreme that I'm going into. So the reason I consider some of those things distractions is because when it comes to the box of time that I've carved out to do a certain thing, I'm doing that instead. And
Yeah. Okay.
and that's what qualifies a distraction. And so then I say to myself, okay, what am I doing instead? Well, okay, I'm usually on a YouTube video. I get up and I grab a drink and I, play, First Take, and I listen to them talk about LeBron James for 5 minutes, and then that one video turns into 3, and all of a sudden I'm 30 minutes in. I'm like, well, shit, I got to get back to work. But then what I've noticed too is there are times where I'm like, okay, stay away from that stuff, and I do. But then I've got a 3-hour time box of when I'm supposed to be working on a webinar, and I find myself getting up to do the dishes. And it's like, oh shit, now you're doing things that you hate only to avoid the thing that you're worried about. And now that becomes the distraction. And so I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen. But and that's what I'm going to be vlogging about. But the intention is for me to be very intentional with my day. So I'm going to be employing, whatever. I'm going to be using the tools that I teach my clients in the Invincible Academy and that I use just in a very strict way. Right now, my life is very kind of easy. Like I coach when I want. I get to work on my projects when I want. Sometimes it's at night. Sometimes it's during the day. Sometimes I take the morning off and I just kick it with Mojo and stuff. And then I work until 11 at night. And so stuff gets done. But it's very since all of my time is my own and I don't have a whole lot of stresses and I have someone to take care of Mojo and all my shit's delivered, I just feel like I'm working on a webinar for 30 minutes, I play guitar for 15 minutes, I go clean, do some bullshit for 30 minutes. So I want to say, what can I do when I hone into that time box and for 90 minutes really focus on this thing, and then not only the ability to focus, but the ability to pull out of focus, which has been another huge problem for me, and to shift into something else. That's going to be a big one for me because when I flip my obsession switch, it feels so good I don't want to stop, and I have to, and that's why I watch TV until 2:30 in the morning. That's why I work for 5 hours without getting up or blinking. So I'm really looking to build the all of my muscles, my emotional muscles, my focus muscles, my physical body, my spiritual gifts and tools that I use. So that's and when I take those distractions out, I feel like it's going to open up that time. And because right now the way I'm doing things, I'm not going to become excellent at anything. I'm just gonna become good at whatever's going on. It's really time for me to become really excellent as a coach and as a video creator.
Yeah, and even in that, I guess I would. I'm 100% behind the challenge. no doubt about it. I mean, I think inherent to the human condition is just this spirit that says, I wonder what would happen if, and you have to, I think it's part of what makes us human. So certainly live into that. But yeah, I guess I would encourage you to continue to try to drop the categories and just find out what happens. Like, if somebody's trying to climb a mountain and they're like, why do you want to climb that mountain? They're like, because it's there and I want to see like what happens when I get to the top, as opposed to some sort of objective, like, I can't really think of a good way to put words around it right now, but I guess I would say, like, if you're going to explore it 100% of the way. Explore why you think all these things. Why do you think that the way you're operating right now isn't excellence? Have you been influenced by the people around you, the world around you, to think that a hyper-focused person for a short period of time is more excellent than someone who goes in and out of work throughout the flow of their day and does do the dishes and does play the guitar and does, I was just listening to a book where there was a guy who's, I can't remember his name, but he's known throughout the world as an author. He wrote over 200 novels, and he only wrote 60 days out of the year as a rule. Just like, if I write more than that, the work suffers, I suffer, I start to hate writing. I guess I would bring to the adventure, to the journey, to the discovery thing, questions about your assumptions. Maybe you might find that the way that you were operating is excellent. Yeah. Or maybe you might find, like, wait, why, how am I even defining excellent in the first place? I think, like Ido Portal talks about, becoming, he always says this about expertise. An expert is somebody who knows more and more about one thing until they know everything there is to know about nothing. And they just continue to narrow their focus. And his point is, like, humans were designed to be generalists, not specialists. Mm-hmm. So, we can run, we can climb, we can swim. We're creative, we're contemplative. We have there's all these things that we should be tapping into, not just one. And he's really speaking more specifically about, like, people who specialize in a sport or an activity. Right. But explore your assumptions all along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I'm really excited to get behind the vlog of it, because I think things that we can't even anticipate are going to unfold right. because of this, and I think that that's where the real gold mm-hmm. is coming from. I don't want it to simply be a 10-minute video where I spent 100 days with no substances and all you see is me suffering, and then I finally am able to drink again and I get wasted with my right. friends and I smoke a blunt. No, it's a spiritual journey, and yep. spiritual journeys come through struggle. And typically the way humans do it is because we avoid struggle so much is we just wait for the world to impose it on us, and then mm-hmm. we deal with it then. And then right. and then from that comes comes that opportunity to grow, and if you handle it the right way, you do grow from that challenge. But I think as an evolved human and as a grateful human that I don't have any real problems in my life right now, mm-hmm. that I can either sit here and just be grateful of it, or I can say, oh man, I've got a lot of space, like emotional space and physical mm-hmm. space and time space to improve. And the only way to do that is to impose your own challenges.
Correct.
And I feel like that's what enlightened people do is they choose their own problems. And mm-hmm. Typically, and again, I challenge myself all the time, but I haven't scared myself in a while. Mm-hmm. I've been scared, but that's outside world right. imposing itself on me. But I haven't scared myself in a while. And there's just something about, you talked about well, what if the way I'm living right now is excellent? From a
Mm-hmm.
certain perspective, it is. It's fantastic. Like the me of 5 years ago was insanely jealous of the me right now, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But when I look at, okay, flip the switch now, be focused, live inside that box, be able to go into it and then jump out and go into the next. And when I try to turn that engine over, it doesn't work very well. And so now there's like, when you try and the universe says, whatever it may be, says, nope, you can't do that. Well, like, damn, I want to. And like, what would it take for me to be able to do that? And like, if I could do that, like, what would I create? And I'm really excited about that. I'm equally as excited about that as I am terrified. Like, 100 days, like coffee. Oh God, it's just like, and the food and the holidays are coming up, and Thanksgiving and just all of that.
Well, I really like that part of it. We're talking about capacity now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're talking about there's a difference between saying that I think success looks like making so much money, or being able to focus for so long, or being able to abstain from this for so long, as opposed to there might come a point in my life where it's not my choice to have the capacity to do or not to do a thing. In order to increase capacity, I need to exercise, right. Whether that's your body or your mind. I mean, it's the same thing, but you know what I mean. I mean, people who are trying to get stronger physically are trying to increase capacity to do something, and it's something that happens in a very short period of time, but they want to be able to call on it when they need it, as opposed to like always living in that spot. And I like that a little bit more better. I like that. I like that a little bit better than saying, like, I've already predefined that success involves being hyper-focused. I've already predefined that excellence involves being able to do these things. That little twist that you just put on it there, I think, that's Oscar dreaming, if you can hear that. That little twist that you put on it there is saying less like, I want these to be practices in my life, and more, I want to have preparedness for when the time calls that I need to do a thing. Right? 90% of the time, you don't need to have the cardiovascular capacity to run from something or someone. I mean, shit, in our world, 99.9% of the time, you don't need that capacity. Guess who wishes they had worked on that a little bit every day?
Right.
The fat ass who hasn't run in 10 years when he's getting chased by somebody or something. So I like that, developing the capacity, say like, in order for me to be prepared for whatever the universe, reality, life throws at me, I have to first choose to engage in those behaviors on my own behalf because of my own will. That'll prepare me for the times when I'm not choosing to do it.
Right.
I like that.
And when everything is okay in my world, there's something that's tapped me on the shoulder. It's like, well, you need to prepare harder now. Like, you got time. Yeah. Like, this is what you do with that time. You prepare, you work to be able to handle the random chaos of life. And that's what really has prompted me to do this. And I was really nervous, I came up with the idea maybe a week or two ago because I was just kind of feeling flat with my. I've got a lot of really exciting things going on. From my webinars to my next Precise Living Masterclass to new clients, and hired a new team, a new marketer, new copywriter. Like, everything's great, but just a lot of opportunity, but progress feeling flat. And this one gave me the heebie-jeebies. So,
yeah. Have you ever heard of or listened to the book Anti-Fragile?
Dalton is reading it right now. So he's been he's been sharing with me all of those principles. But the
Yeah.
anti-fragile principles are the principles of my concept of invincibility.
Right.
Like invincible is you cannot break, and it's like as long as you're alive, you're still moving forward, and that's what
Right. Well, and
anti-fragile is about.
furthermore, not that you cannot break, but anti-fragile takes it to the next step, which is chaos actually makes you stronger.
Right. That's my concept. You win or you win more. I either
Right.
win by getting exactly what I wanted and I get one win, or I win more
Yeah.
by pulling the wisdom out of it. So the next 20 times that happens, I win. You win 20,
Right.
you take one step back, but 20 steps forward. And that's the whole concept of turning, bullshit into beauty, turning pain into progress. And that's what anti-fragile is about. It relies on the fact that stress is inevitable. And so learn how to utilize it as opposed to learning how to avoid it. And once you do that, then the next step is learning how to avoid it because you're prepared for when it happens. And the principles of that are awesome. That's something I probably should read to really help kind of quantify my philosophies and kind of hear them from, a different angle.
Well, yeah, and it's not a book about, like, a lot of times someone will write a book that encapsulates a principle, but they only are writing about it through the lens of like finance or fitness or whatever. He's writing about it from like this principle, this concept is everywhere except for in our heads and in our classrooms where we should be telling people like, you actually get better by facing challenges. Chaos is a part of life, and it's a good part of life. We shouldn't be insulating ourselves from it. You become fragile by avoiding it.
Right.
You grow by taking it on. So, he comes at it from all kinds of different angles. So for anyone interested in any, sort of one path, whether that's finance or fitness or whatever, no matter what your interest is, it's a good read.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to just get your perspective on this because, I've been holding you accountable for not eating late at night, and that's going fantastic.
10 days in a row.
That's great. And I'm going to be...
It's not easy either. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. The first couple nights were good. And I anticipated this. Everybody has been that person who's like, I'm going to start doing that on Monday, or I'm going to stop doing that on Monday or whatever. And then you're like, I'm 3 days in. This is the easiest thing I've ever done. And then last night, I still have yet to get out of bed to come and read the notes. I have not come down. But the last 2 nights, I have laid in bed being like, oh my gosh, I just want to eat some granola bars right now. And then it's for 3 minutes, and then I go to sleep, and it's fine.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got a client coming to my place.
Yeah, I got to run too.
All right. Cool. Good convo.
All right. Yep. See ya.
Talk to you.